uh, that I've kind of been pushing back. That today I'm just going to kind of do I don't know, I'm going to do maybe more of a rapid fire. I'm just going to kind of read through some headlines and bits and pieces of stuff, and we'll talk about it. But I kind of want to clear the cache, as it will, or cache, however you want to say it. Yeah, I keep piling up. I've got articles and tweets and things to look at. I've been piling up for days. This from Robbie Yeager, who has a channel on the Rockfin. If you guys want to watch Robbie Yeager's channel. Yeah, always interesting, the people who tell you that they care about climate change, doing things like owning stocks in fossil fuel companies and pipeline companies, etc., etc. You know, we really care about this climate change, but let me make sure my economic health is fully intact, and then but I can get out in front of the people and, you know, tell them it's a serious problem. Anyways, per stock disclosures filed with the US OGE Climate Envoy, or at Climate Envoy, you can find him there, John Kerry, and his wife were buying stock in fossil fuel and pipeline companies such as Kinder Morgan as recently as the end of 2016, so not that long ago. The question is do they still own the stock? They bought it, and they still own it. I mean, you know, still, John Kerry has been caring about climate change for a long time, or supposedly caring about climate change. Not exactly the behavior you'd expect from someone considered a lifelong environmental warrior. Yeah. He goes on to say Kerry was obviously not obligated to file these reports after he left office. But while there isn't documentation, and given the fact that he and his wife just this month divested, it's likely they continued to invest in fossil fuel companies beyond 2016. And there you go, right? So apparently they divested just a few days ago. Divested their holdings from over 400 companies in accordance with ethics laws. Well, that's good. That's good. Some of those companies were Hess Corporation, the Hess Corporation, that's a fossil fuel company, Sempra Energy, Marathon Oil, Murphy USA, ConocoPhillips, and Kinder Morgan. Guys, I'm going to be the climate envoy. Hold on a second while I sell these oil stocks. Just a minute. Just a minute. Just give me a second. You know, I don't know. So I'm going to talk about this a few times today, but there's a lot of historical amnesia going on. And the overarching narrative, or the overarching predominance of information that you're getting in the news, requires you not to have a memory, right? Because it's like, you know, this year I decided to care about people of color or people with no money. This year I decided to care about women and their rights. This year I just decided, you know, to be a really great person and support really great things. And so all of my misdeeds and past behaviors are totally wiped clean, and, you know, and everybody, and, you know, right? This is, I'm talking about the politicians and or public figures that, you know, are suddenly like super socially conscious and aware, super social justice warriors, and, oh, you know, and everybody's like, oh, that's how, you know, that's how they want you to react. There's no historical. I mean, you're not even supposed to remember last year, according to the Democrats, right? They just passed this COVID relief bill. We're pulling people out of poverty. Wait, hold on. we just had a pandemic, and we're still in the pandemic, and that's what this relief bill is all about, right? This stimulus bill or whatever it's called is to relieve the people who were put into poverty by the pandemic, right? So you closed everything down, locked up the stores, locked the doors on businesses, told people to stay home, gave them kind of not really enough money to survive, right? You didn't give them enough money to survive for a year. For a year. And then you pass another relief bill, finally, after a year, and you're telling people that you're lifting people out of poverty. No, you're not. You're not lifting anybody who was poor before the pandemic out of poverty. Sorry, that's a lie. But, they're putting this information out there as if, I can't even remember anything that happened, 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Last year, what was that? When was that? Oh, there's so many poor people in this country, and the Democrats are lifting them out of poverty. Oh, this is like a New Deal type moment. No, it's not. No, it's not. And that's the language they want to use in order to make you feel like, wait, weren't they supposed to give us $2,000 checks? Wait, they're trying to tell us that $1,400 is supposed to pay all our bills from the last year, or whenever it was I ran out of money last year. Happy days are here again. Oh, the country is suddenly made whole. And we fixed all these social problems, like a $15 minimum. Oh, no, we didn't do that. Like Medicare. No, we didn't do that either. We're supposed to get $600 unemployment. Oh, it's only $300. That's fine. That's better than nothing. Rejoice, right? You're getting basically nothing that they promised, and you're getting about half of some of the things they promised. But, we're lifting people out of poverty. We're investing in Americans in America, and this is a whole new day. No, it's not. You put millions of people into joblessness, homelessness, and poverty over the last year, and you finally pass this relief bill, and you're lifting people out of poverty. Yeah, you put them in poverty. You idiots. But if enough people enough bing bongs out there are like, what? Oh, this is great. Oh, I love the Democrats. Oh my God, this is so much better than Trump. And there's plenty of people out there that have exactly that reaction because, it helps if you have no memory at all, no historical memory at all. If you just take everything that happens the day that it happens as, on face value, and you're like, oh my God, this really happened today. I don't know where to put it in the conjunction of what it means to the rest of my life, the future or the past. I don't know. I'm just going to be happy today about it. And, God bless the Democrats. The Democrats are relying on your stupidity to screw people over or to continue giving people the bare minimum. They're relying on your gullibility. And that, that's really terrible. They're gaslighting you, basically. So it's, the thing is there's a gaslighter and there's a gaslightee, right? And so when you realize, first of all, if somebody's gaslighting you, if you continue to let them gaslight you, you're the fool, right? Fool me once or whatever the fuck that is. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? If you allow yourself to be gaslit, you're the idiot. Because after a couple of times, you have to eventually figure out like, oh, yeah, they're really not telling me they're not really not doing what they said they were going to do. Huh. Let me put that together. But if you continue going, oh, this is great, this is fine, everything's going to be fine, then you are the idiot, right? You can say that they're evil for gaslighting you, but if you continue to allow yourself to be gaslit, then the responsibility no longer lies in their hands. It relies in your non-brain owning head. Anyways, I feel like that was went off on a tangent there. And I was supposed to be going through these things fairly quickly. Anyways, let's look at this from Jim Hansen. February global temperature took a dive. So it's been fairly cold in February. Is accelerated warming still on? With 1.5 C mean warming breached by 2030 or not? Well, of course it is. We must wait a little longer to see. Stay tuned. February. So even James Hansen is doing a little bit of gaslighting here. I don't know what the point of this is. We'll have to wait a little longer to see if we make it to 1.5. All right, happy days. But here's the trend line. The trend line just continues to go steadily upwards, right? There's no, you have highs and lows. But this guy just keeps on cranking, right? And look at the highs over the past, 5 years, right? The last 5 years have been pretty unprecedented. As far as a jump in temperatures and extreme weather events. The indicators, over the last 5 years, the indicators that climate change is accelerating have been blinking red. But, we have a cold February, all of a sudden, it's climate change is on pause. Okay. Okie dokie. Anyways, this is where we're at. But this trend line will continue going, boo, boo. Just follow the line. All you have to do is follow the line. It's so ridiculous, though, that it's a 1980 baseline. Thank God we're only counting the last 40 years. Again, historical amnesia is required to believe that we're only at 1.1 C. That you have to, willfully forget that we were burning carbon long before 1980. Well, if we only measure it from 1980, then, we've got a lot of time left. We're going to stay well below 2C. If you move this baseline, back, the baseline. I mean, maybe this is, so they're saying 1980, I guess they're counting it as a baseline. I don't know. Yes, they're counting, no, they're actually counting 1880. Wait, this looks weird, though. Why does it say 1920? Anyways. 1880 to 1920 means. So what is the baseline is what? 1920? I don't get it. I'm confused. 1991 to 20. There's many different things going on in this graph. What does this mean? With a 1991 to 2020 base. I don't know. I'm confused. But anyway, supposedly we're at 1.1 C. Depending on who you're listening to or who you're following, we're much closer to 1.5. But they want you to think that we got a lot of time for 1.5. But 2030 will be here sooner than you think. This from Jim Baird. The climate crisis is making the Hawaiian Islands drier overall, but when we do get rain, we get it all at once, and that means more landslides, runoff, algae blooms, erosion, and flooding. And that is true. So heavy rain in Hawaii prompts state of emergency. And this has been going on for the last few years. Major flooding in Hawaii has been happening for the last few years. Also, add in some serious king tides happening in Hawaii as well. They're having a lot of erosion and other problems due to king tides. Did you know that was happening? Did you know? Yeah, they don't, little things like the fact that, we get regular flooding now from high tides in places like Miami and Hawaii and San Diego. We get regular flooding. That's just not a thing that people really talk much about. But, isn't this a harbinger of bad things? This from Go Green. Why is this allowed in a climate crisis? Either get serious about climate action and introduce rationing of consumer flying, or start writing humanity obituary. So he posts this: dirt cheap flights offered as airlines rebuild battered networks. And of course we know this is happening. They're bailing out airlines. They want the airlines back, blowing out emissions, and they want them in full flight, if you will. They want the industry back. No one's talking about, we're going to build back better, and it's going to be equitable, and we're going to build, we're going to create jobs. But nobody is talking about, maybe we should have less planes in the air. Maybe we should have less cars on the road. Maybe less traffic is a good thing. More from Go Green. Food drives a third of global climate emissions. About half of these CO2 emissions, chiefly from land use, mainly carbon losses from deforestation and degradation of organic soils, as well as energy from steps like packaging, transportation, and processing. Again, it's the making the things and shipping the things and wrapping the things and stocking the things and selling the things and throw the stuff it was wrapped in away. All of this is contributing to climate change and or environmental degradation. But that's a lot. A third of all the world's man-made greenhouse gas emissions are linked to food. And more on this, big banks make a dangerous bet on the world's growing demand for food. We're going to need more food, guys, but what about climate change? I don't know. Food is a little more important than air travel. But I don't see humans stopping either of those things anytime soon, eating or flying. While banks and asset managers are promising to divest from fossil fuels, they are expanding investments in high carbon foods and commodities tied to deforestation. Bill Gates buying up all kinds of farmland. There's, big players. They see what's coming. They know what's happening. Arable soil is, levels are going down. Soil nutrients are going down. Farmable land is going down, and you have very, very wealthy people buying up a lot of farmland hand over fist, because how else are you going to control the food? As global banking giants and investment firms vow to divest from polluting energy companies, they're continuing to bankroll another major driver of the climate crisis: food and farming corporations that are responsible directly or indirectly for cutting down vast carbon-storing forests and spewing greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. These agricultural investments, largely unnoticed and unchecked, represent a potentially catastrophic blind spot. Again, people need food. They go to the store, they buy food. People really don't want to think about where their food comes from. Animal protein and even dairy is likely and already has started to become the new oil and gas, said Bruno Sarda, the former North America president of CDP, a framework through which companies disclose their carbon emissions. This is the biggest source of emissions that doesn't have a target on its back. Very key. Very key, right? I mean, because we can all day long, those bad old fossil fuel companies, those evil ghouls. But I mean, if you think about what if you think about what fossil fuels are actually involved in our everyday lives, you know, you 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 have to start thinking about thinking about it in a broader sense, right? Because fossil fuels are involved in making our cars and making all the appliances we buy and all the food that we eat. Fossil fuels are incredibly involved in that. So you can say like, oh, those bad old fossil fuel companies, oh, those mean old, bad old, evil, nasty, wrong. They're criminal fossil fuel companies. Oh, those bad old companies. Okay, but they're not just. It's not just about making gas and burning gas. That's not where it ends. Fossil fuels are in every single thing that we do, and so it's just really easy for people to go like, oh, shame on them. But if you really got rid of all the fossil fuel companies and all the things that fossil fuels are involved in, your life would look incredibly different. And you would probably be forced to live a very, very different life if you really ended, fossil fuels now. End fossil fuels now. Okay. How are you going to live? Not meaning that you won't be able to live. How are you going to live? Because you're going to have to live a very different lifestyle. You're going to have to grow your own food. You're going to have to, live a way more meager lifestyle than you live right now. What's the number? People that live in Western countries would have to live on like 5% of the resources that they currently use in order to not cause more climate damage, right? You have to take down your consumption by 95%. So think about that. I know it's super easy, but it's also part of the collective, not just amnesia, but just collective duncing of people, right? They're not telling you this information or letting you think about this or asking you to think about this because they don't want you to think about it. By pouring money into emissions-intensive agriculture, banks and investors are making a dangerous bet on the world's growing demand for food, especially foods that are the greatest source of emissions in the food system, meat and dairy. Agriculture and deforestation, largely driven by livestock production, are responsible for nearly 1/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions. By 2030, livestock production alone could consume nearly half of the world's carbon budget. The amount of greenhouse gas the world can emit without blowing past global climate targets. That's by 2030. That's really soon. Livestock production alone would consume nearly half of the world's carbon. So I know there's a huge shift or trend towards veganism or not eating meat, but on a worldwide level, well, let's find out. How is meat consumption looking on a worldwide level? World consumption of meat. Mm-hmm. Well, here's okay. Well, this answered my question. Here's a meter. Tons of meat eaten globally this year. Well, of course it's going to go. Oh, hold on 1 second. This is not what I wanted to find out. Sorry. Excuse me. Although there's a meter telling you how much meat is being eaten every year, and just obviously. So the top meat-eating countries are the U.S., Australia, Argentina, New Zealand, and Spain. If everyone shared the meat-heavy diet of the average American, the world could feed only 2.5 billion people. The world population also going up, inching ever closer to 8 billion. I was actually looking for just a graph. Can I see a graph? Can I see a year-by-year graph? Let's see. Would somebody give me a graph? Anybody? Okay. Okay, here we go. Finally, that took a really long time. No, that's not it. God dang it. Well, it looks like, okay. Americans now eat way more meat. So, I don't know about the world, but beef kind of staying the same, pork going up, chicken going up. Here we go. Meat consumption per capita. Looks like Germany is going down, USA is going up, Sweden going up, Japan leveling off. Can you guys see this? Meat consumption by type, world. Here, this is what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. Okay, but this only goes to 2013, but so who knows what happened in the last few years. There's a big push to go towards veganism, so maybe it's gone down a little. But this looks like a steady rise here. Anyways. Again, just went on a little segue there. Anyways, agriculture and deforestation, largely driven by livestock production, are responsible for nearly 1/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions. It's not enough to divest from fossil fuel, said Devlin Koyek, a senior researcher at Grain, a nonprofit organization that advocates for small farms. If you look at emissions just from the largest meat and dairy companies and the trajectories they have, you see that these companies and their models are completely unsustainable. Those trajectories could put global climate goals well out of reach. The American banks that are the four leading financiers globally of fossil fuels, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Bank of America, all to varying degrees have made climate action more of a priority. But these and other major global banks continue to funnel dollars into companies that trade in soft commodities, including beef, soy, timber, and palm oil that are linked to the destruction of forests and critically important ecosystems. JP Morgan Chase, for example, has directed more than $450 million since 2016. It's $500 million. 2016 to leading Brazilian meat packers that environmental groups claim have direct ties to deforestation and to recent devastating fires in the Amazon. Though they have promised to address climate change, Rabobank, Morgan Stanley, Barclays, and Goldman Sachs continue funding agribusinesses directly or indirectly involved in deforestation or high-carbon agriculture. The world's food system needs to feed a population expected to hit 10 billion by 2050, meaning that the system will have 3 billion more people to feed than it did a decade ago. Global investors and banks see an opportunity in these numbers and in some cases are doubling down. We're gonna double down on giving you all the food. Well, The some people are gonna eat much more than others will. Hey. Remember that song? It was a hit. Big hit back in the day. Jay Thadcast on Rockfin says, all the fish sales, courtesy of Chinese fishing fleets, say we are cleaning out the oceans. Irk1 says, all food production reduces biodiversity unless it is proven otherwise through soil biology analysis. Rich Diana says, everything is getting out of reach. Nasman Abs, I agree with you. There will never be 10 billion people, no. Ain't gonna happen. As Nancy Pelosi said, ain't gonna happen. Why? Because there's going to be too much climate devastation. You know, there will be too many fatalities due to climate change way before that happens. So there's just going to be the natural population controls are going to start kicking in. And unnatural population controls are going to kick in too. No doubt, right? People are going to be left to starve, right? While the wealthy consolidate all the resources and all the money, a lot of people are going to be left to fend for themselves with nothing. And that will most likely happen. Well, even for all the equitable future talk, no. Equitable for whom? Unapologetic Vegan says most don't know the carbon footprint of their diets. True. Francis Madigan says carrot juice is murder. Okay. I love carrot juice. It's delicious. G. Demerer says nature will win, humans will lose. Well, unless humans begin to, I don't know, align themselves with nature. Much more. But that means that means understanding what that even means to align yourself with nature. Not to be just like, I like nature. Oh, I really like plants. Anyways, let's move on. Because there's much more. Here's another frightening article. They're all frightening. Is this the end of forests as we've known them? Trees lost to drought and wildfires are not returning. Climate change is taking a toll on the world's forests and radically changing the environment before our eyes. It's kind of I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm just going to try and pick out some interesting sections of this. Camille Stevens Ruman never used to worry about seeing dead trees. As a wildland firefighter in the American West, she encountered untold numbers killed in blazes she helped to extinguish. She knew fires are integral to forests in this part of the world. They prune out smaller trees, giving room to the rest and even help the seeds of some species to germinate. We have largely operated under the assumption that forests are going to come back after fires, Stevens Ruman said. But starting in 2013, she noticed something unsettling. In certain places, the trees were not returning. For an analysis she led of sites across the Rocky Mountains, she found that almost 1/3 of places that had burned since 2000 had no trees regrowing whatsoever. Instead of tree seedlings, there were shrubs and flowers. The shift, echoed across a warming world, is a distinct phenomenon from trees dying because of direct human intervention, such as logging. These trees are dying without humans laying a hand on them, at least physically, and they are not resprouting. Sounds like some climate change happening. Forests cover 30% of the planet's land surface, and yet as humans heat the atmosphere, some locations where they would have grown now appear too dry or hot to support them. And that's all you pretty much need to know from that. We are losing our forests because we are heating the atmosphere. I can see we are losing trees in Los Angeles because of the heating of the atmosphere. Moving on, I read something about this a few months ago. Remember when I reported on the barrels of DDT waste in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California, Los Angeles? Deep sea Roombas will map the ocean for barrels of toxic DDT waste. When Californians learned in October that the waters off Santa Catalina Island once served as a dumping ground for thousands of barrels of DDT waste, the ocean science community jumped into action. Well, that's good. That's good. So they're mapping the ocean floors for these barrels. But, I mean, consider the fact that these barrels of DDT waste have been in the ocean decomposing, basically, for decades. So what has that already done to the ocean? Listen, just to get a feel for how large this problem is. As many as 500,000 barrels, 500,000 barrels could still be underwater today, according to old records and a recent UC Santa Barbara study that provided the first real glimpse of this pollution bubbling 3,000 feet under the sea. These barrels are full of toxic chemicals that could be causing illness among ocean wildlife and even humans. Ignoring it or claiming it's just too difficult to deal with is not an option, said Senator Dianne Feinstein, who has pushed numerous agencies to make this issue a priority. Meanwhile, those barrels of toxic waste are just sitting there. Just sitting there until we figure it out. Lovely to think about, though, on my next trip to the ocean. And lastly, I'll end this section with I guess we'll call this good news. Tasmania declares itself 100% powered by renewable electricity. That's cool, Tasmania. Way to go. We'll clap it up for Tasmania. This is good. I mean, consider probably the very low population of Tasmania. They're probably not using a huge amount of electricity or energy, which helps them to be fully renewable. But also remember, the claims by like Germany and other countries that, they're powering their grid with mostly renewable electricity, which is actually, again, magical accounting. But they're trying, and so that's fine. We're going to encourage the trying. But here's the part though that's not so good. Apparently, most of their renewable energy, or a big part of it, is hydroelectricity. So And I don't know if that means dams or other kinds of hydroelectricity, but usually when you hear hydroelectricity, that means dams, which are not good for the environment. Hold on. I want to come down here. Anyways, good for Tasmania. We'll give them. We'll clap it up. We'll give them a hurrah. I was trying to find out. There's other countries that are using 100% renewable electricity, or they make that claim. I think Costa Rica is one of them. Hold on, where is it? Let me find it. Sorry if you guys are getting dizzy from me scrolling. My bad. Oh, I don't know. I can't find it. This is a live Australia electricity generation data feed. This is interesting. What do you think is the black part? The big part of their electricity generation is black coal. And it provides a lot of their energy. And I'm guessing this is the heavily populated area of Australia. Anyways,